What's going on, guys? This is Jack and we're bringing you guys another video, and today, well, first off, let me just say that's great to say again because it's been a long time and I'm finally back bringing you guys more videos. So there's going to be a lot more effort this time around. I promise you guys there's going to be more effort, and it'll definitely show in the quality of the content. So today we're coming at you guys with the top 5 Fortnite video, and today we're going over the top 5 most underrated places to land in Fortnite. So without any further ado, let's hop into the number 5 spot. Coming in at number 5, we have Dusty Divot. Now I can already see the comments coming. How can Dusty Divot be underrated when it's the main focus of Season 4? Well, I've been landing there for most of Season 4, and I can already tell you that I haven't seen nearly as many people there as you'd think there might be. Normally when I play duos, there's 1 to 4-ish duos there, meaning there would be 4 to 8 people, roughly, going to Dusty Divot every game, which is not very many compared to the start of the season when there were, like, half the lobby would go there in the entire game. It was really overcrowded, and there's definitely not enough loot to go around in that area, so the loot's okay, but luckily there's tons of hop rocks to travel out and away from the area, so you can go to Retail, Salty, go to Tilted, you can go to Loot Lake, and that's the one thing I really enjoy about this location is not only is the loot decent, you can get easy kills in the beginning, but the location on the map of this spot is just beautiful. It's in between all the spots where you'd want to go, and it's because it's literally in the center of the map, it's usually in every starting circle, so that's pretty lucky too. So and there's also Dusty Depot, the original area, up at the top right if you're facing the middle. So that has a couple extra chests as well, but the hop rocks really add a lot, and it lets you travel to better locations. So Dusty Divot comes in at number 5. And at the number 4 spot is Snobby Shores. So I think, from what I can tell, the thing that drives people away from this spot is the location on the map, because it's on the far left side, which people think it's not going to be in the circle, and usually it's not, but that's not as big of a deal as people think it is. It's usually not too far. If you're lucky and there's a central circle, you usually only have to go to the soccer arena, or the soccer stadium, the smaller one by Tilted, which is not that far away from Snobby, not Salty. It's not that far away anyway, so it's not as big of a deal as a lot of people think there is. There's 5 houses in the town itself with lots of loot in each of them. I think there's usually up to 4 spawns for chests in each house, which is pretty good for getting loot for sure. I usually go here in duos, but it can also be a pretty good spot to land in squads. But obviously there's going to be more people going there if it's squads, so it's really up to you what game would you want to land there in. But next to the area, there's also the rocket launch site, which has even more loot, up to like 6 chests, I believe. Could be less, I could be totally wrong with that, but the rocket launch site's a good area, and apparently starting next week we'll be able to launch the rocket, so that's pretty interesting. But there's that. There's also a house on the hill right to the right of the rocket test site, and like I mentioned earlier, there's the soccer stadium straight ahead pretty much from Snobby if you're facing away from it. And if you don't want to go there, Pleasant Park isn't too far away, and neither is Greasy Grove, so you can just travel to those areas. But Snobby Shores is overall just a pretty underlooked area. Coming in at the number 3 spot is the cargo crates near Tomato Town and Retail Row. So I think a few of you might be surprised by this spot, but honestly, if you look into it, there's a lot of loot and a lot of materials that spawn near here. I think there's up to 7 chests that can spawn here, which is pretty amazing for an unmarked location. And then obviously there's all the cargo crates, so you can get tons of metal. There's lots of trees around there too. You're right next to Wailing Woods, so you can chop down trees, and it's a great way to get building materials. And there's obviously, like I said, there's 7 chests, so you can get a lot of good loot out of chests. And then there's ground spawns as well. So overall, it's a really good spot to land for solos and duos. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for squads because it doesn't have a whole lot of room, and obviously you don't want to share all the loot that's there. But in solos and duos, it's definitely a spot that you might want to consider heading into if you're going to do a speed run or just try to outlast everyone. If you haven't won before, this would probably be a good spot to start at. And if you're going to try and start tryharding the game like I do, I would definitely recommend landing here. Coming in at the number 2 spot, we got the OG Classic. Loot Lake. Now, actually, before I start this entry, the fun fact is this is the spot where I landed in my very first game of Fortnite. I can remember, I'm like, oh, let's land at the lake, and then I landed mid-house and I died instantly. So that's the very first Fortnite memory that I have is landing Loot Lake and dying instantly, which does not happen anymore because like no one goes there anymore because people realized, oh, it doesn't have too much loot. But if you really think about it, there is quite a bit of loot. So for this entry, I'm going to include the factories right near Loot Lake, as well as the modern house and the watchtower right next, like surrounding the lake. So I'm going to count those as a part of this entry too. So Loot Lake has, I believe it's 3 chests just on the middle island. There's 2 possible that can spawn in the boats. There's 2 that can spawn on the asteroid piece on the other side of the lake. There's 2 in this factory that I'm in right now, as you can see. There's 1 in the modern house that can spawn in the garage, and then there's 1 that can spawn in the watchtower, and I believe there's 1 in the boathouse as well. So overall, there's way more chests than you would think that there would be. It's in a really good location on the map. It's right next to Tilted Towers, right next to Pleasant Park. It's not too far from Tomato Town. It's right next to Anarchy Acres. So you can travel to better locations if you want, because not many people land here to begin with. And the other added bonus is that Loot Lake, statistically, people have found, is one of the most popular locations for llamas to spawn, even if they're not that great after the most recent nerf. But llamas spawn a lot in the middle of Loot Lake. I found at least 4 or 5 just in the past month or 2. Probably since llamas came out, I've found that Loot Lake is by far one of the hot spots for llamas to spawn, so that's an added bonus to this area. But overall, Loot Lake is just a very underrated location, has way more chests than you'd think if you really look into it, and there's plenty of ways to gather materials and things like that. So overall, very underrated location, comes in at number 2. Finally, in at the number 1 spot, we have the unmarked factories right next to Flush Factory. This spot has way more loot, and I gotta say that people are starting to go here a lot more than they used to, but overall, a lot of people don't think this is going to be a good spot to go if you want to get a win or good loot as a whole. But if you think about it, there's quite a bit more loot than you'd think there would be. It's in a good spot on the map. When the players do go there, I find that they're usually easy to kill if you just get a good weapon and catch them off guard. Like, if you grab a weapon on your roof, run to them in their building, they usually won't expect you to rush that early, but I usually do that, and I usually come out on top. So there are 4 factories. We usually have 1 chest, maybe 2 per building, and a lot of ground spawns and things like that. And then there's trucks with chests in them, there's cargo crates with loot in them, and then there's also I call it the DJ booth, but it's more of like a club, and it has a gigantic dance floor and a DJ booth in it, and there's loot in that building as well, but not a whole lot. This place overall is full of good loot, and I know before Season 4 that DJ booth was just like a warehouse, and it had like 3 chests in there. So they took out, I think they took out like 2 chests in that building and obviously remodeled it completely. But overall, this location is just really good, and not a lot of people use it to land and get good wins. But I've won, I'd say roughly 7 or 8 times just from this one spot, I would say. And it's just so good for finding good loot, killing players, and getting a victory. So that was the number 1 spot. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So this is finally my return video to YouTube. There's going to be a lot more effort, like I said in the beginning of this video. A lot more effort in these new videos. I'm going to be uploading and streaming a lot this summer, so if you guys enjoyed, be sure to subscribe and leave a like, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace, guys.